ending a program which was so poorly written, which is so unpopular among the people.
Why would he be afraid? He has lifetime tenure.
Because he thinks that the ruling in Gore versus Bush versus Gore in 2000 undermined the credibility of the court, and so he is bending over backwards not to do anything controversial, and that's why he has, for the third time now, rescued this horribly written bill.
Not controversial.
Franklin, the president made a gamble that he could extort the states into setting up state exchanges. He never thought that many governors would not do it. And when it happened, he just wrote
after they had all advocated setting
it doesn't matter. I'm not arguing whether that was right or wrong, Franklin. The point is, it was a bad law with a bad phrasing in it. And it was phrasing that was put there purposely. So instead of going back to Congress and fixing it, he got his buddies on the liberal-leaning Supreme Court to just reinterpret the law. And the problem that I'm shocked that you as a lawyer aren't bothered by is what that says for the future of the Supreme Court and the future of the value of written law in America.
There is nothing unusual about it. In fact, it's what's typically happened when you've reviewed these statutes for the last 100 years. It is not a new development. And that's the part that's almost comical, the way that you guys are having these seizures over this when all they're really doing is the same thing they've been doing for a long time.
Well, let me ask you this, Franklin. The court used the 14th Amendment to establish that the states cannot discriminate or deprive a citizen of rights. Is that correct?
That's fairly close,
okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then did the gay marriage ruling just legalize concealed carry nationwide?
If concealed carry is a fundamental right, you could make that argument. I don't know that it is.
Well, wait a minute. What's
the Second Amendment?
Well, because the Second Amendment doesn't say anything about concealing weapons.
It doesn't say you have. That's the point. Right now, the law actually requires you to conceal it. So, yeah, you're right, Franklin. Open carry. How's that? That fix your problem?
You could make that argument. You could make that argument.
That's what's fixing to happen.
I don't know what difference it would make. We have 300 million guns in America. What is it going to be, 320 million? What's the difference?
Did you see what is going on in Puerto Rico?
With their budget?
Well, they're going broke too.
Mm-hmm.
But they just got rid. The crime has gotten so bad there. They had registered, only registered firearms is the only way. But now they've opened it up where anyone can have a weapon, and now they've opened it up to open carry. Crime has gotten so bad.
It's been a persistent problem there for 40 years. How terrible the crime situation is there.
Well, what about the problem of spending more money than you've got? Because that's their real problem right now. And Detroit is already there. Chicago's soon to come there. California's soon to come there. At what point, Greece?
California has a budget surplus right now, John.
What's their debt?
They do.
What's their debt, Franklin?
Less than it was 2 or 3 years ago. Because they have a budget surplus.
Because they raise taxes. They raise taxes, and all of their people are fleeing the state.
And the economy took off.
Franklin, the economy has not taken off in California. The businesses are going as fast as they can go to Texas and to Tennessee. That's the problem with dealing with progressives, California. Franklin. You all just, if you don't like the reality on the ground, you just ignore it.
The reality is everybody who's done what you've suggested to's economy has gone into the tank.
Actually, that's not true, Franklin.
Go look at Kansas.
What about Greece? What's going on with Greece?
What's happening in Greece?
What's happening in Greece?
Yep.
Yeah.
How's that working out?
Long term or
for
short term?
Oh, you're gonna what? You know something long term that the Euro community doesn't? Because they're all afraid the entire economy is going to collapse.
Absolutely, I know.
People are going to starve.
I know what the problem with the European currency union is. An individual country can't adjust a currency the way most countries would.
Oh, you mean inflation? In other words, devalue their currency.
No, I'm talking about affecting the value of imports and exports, which is really what currency manipulation does.
Franklin, they had to shut the banks down for 7 days.
Let me give you something here, Franklin. The debt is $72 billion.
Now, you're talking about Puerto Rico.
I'm sorry. This is Puerto Rico. The debt is $72 billion. The population is 3.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
Divide 72 billion by 3.2 million. What do you get?
a big number.
Compare their.
If I could do math, I'd be
Compare
in the
the
medical field
compare
like
the
that.
income. Consider that the 3.2 is not just workers, but that includes babies and grandmothers. Now then, who's going to buy their bonds? So what are they going to do to fix this problem?
Am I missing something? Have I been
It's
standing up for Puerto
overspending.
Rico
It's called-
spending?
It's called overspending.
Matter of
Exactly
fact,
what America's doing
Let's
right now.
talk about
Same
local.
thing.
Bradley County is $70+ million in debt. And we're getting ready. We've got commissioners talking about let's raise taxes so we can borrow even more money. Now, it's always a worthy project. We need this or we need that. But the fact of the matter is, families couldn't run their family budgets the way governments run theirs. We are living outside of our means, and someday it's going to collapse, and then you're going to have horrible consequences.
I am the person on this show who, since we started it, have been preaching the same mantra. What government needs to do is decide what services we want and then figure out how to pay for them.
All right.
Not the other way around.
Well, but here's your problem, Frank. I agree. You have said that. And it's always said in the context of the local government. Why don't you say it about the national government?
I don't have a problem with that argument, John.
Well, you've got a problem with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders because none of them, and I'll be honest, Mike Huckabee, none of them think we need entitlement reforms, even though it's leading us down the road to bankruptcy. So tell your leaders in the Democrat Party to quit giving stuff away.
First of all, the president has said he's in favor of entitlement reform.
What has he proposed? Nothing.
Well, that's not.
He puts a budget forward every year. Has he proposed cutting entitlements?
John, there was a huge budget deal almost reached in 2010 between Boehner and Obama that involved significant cuts in that.
2010, Boehner was the minority leader.
Hold on.
That's his own people.
Because he couldn't get the vote, though.
With the Democrats.
Hold on. McConnell was in the conversation too.
Again, a minority leader.
Again, though, this president was proposing significant tax.
And then he pulled the rug out from
under
him at the last minute.
Your people said no new revenue, period. Yes, he did.
Yeah, he said, I want tax increases at the last minute.
No, it wasn't the last minute. It was always part of the discussion.
Well, with Obama, I'm sure tax increases always were part of the discussion. You're absolutely right about that.
John, you cannot establish...
Frankly, once you get
out of the military budget, you can't establish any significant spending.
He could cram Obamacare down our throats with a Democrat majority. Why couldn't he do entitlement reform?
You cannot establish.
Why couldn't he do entitlement reform?
Significant extra spending
to all
from
the
this
Hispanics
president.
out there, why couldn't he do immigration reform? Why couldn't he do a lot of things when he had
couldn't
both
get
houses
60
of Congress
votes
with his own people?
Couldn't get 60
with his
votes.
own people, and yet you continue to vote Democrat.
Couldn't get 60 votes,
and he had the votes in his own house
to shut off the debate.
Wait a minute, what's he done about things when he couldn't get votes in the past?
Well, executive order.
Executive order. Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Why hadn't he done that?
Bypass Congress and then get the Supreme Court, his lackeys over there, to endorse what he did.
That sounds like a good idea.
I love the sour grapes expression on YouTube.
If you want to talk about sour grape,
this.
let me give you a sour grape. And I would like to know on a very even keel what you think about this. The Supreme Court ruled that, one, Justice Ginsburg, for example, is on record commenting on the Roe versus Wade decision that it was a mistake for the court to weigh in because the people, through the Democrat process, were actually, now she said this before she went on the Supreme Court, but the people were moving in the right direction. Democracy was the way to do this, states' rights through the proper democratic channels, because that allowed the culture to accept it. And then what does she do? She turns around on this issue, and she, with the vote of 5 unelected judges, crams their opinion down everyone's throat when, once again, democracy was actually moving in that direction on the state level. But here's my point. Over 60 million people voted to define marriage as between one man and one woman in these states that they have now invalidated. It is a divisive issue no matter which side of the coin you're on, and people of conscience on both sides strongly hold their opinions. So what does the president do on Friday night or Thursday night? He lights the White House in rainbow colors. Now, Franklin, I'm just going to ask you this. Tell me, with that kind of division in the country, when we hope to find peace and reconciliation among differing views, tell me how lighting the White House in rainbow colors made this a more united nation?
Well, what I think is that more and more people are accepting.
That's not what I'm talking. I agree with you. I agree with you.
There's people
Tell
that
me
don't.
why the president chose
John,
to light the
He's
White
supposed
House
to be
in
the
rainbow
president for
colors.
everyone. Is he not supposed to be the president for everyone?
Is he supposed
sure.
to make us unite?
So,
Yes.
but here's the problem with that theory. No president, no matter who the party is, can make everybody happy. So you're saying he should never take a position?
Franklin, let me
Take the position.
Here's the point. What if George Bush was in office when this case came through and the case went the other way and he did some kind of screw you to the LGBT community? What would you say?
He strung up some.
Would you
more
go, great
Confederate
for
flags.
George, he gets his victory lap? You know what?
I would have said he's the
To the
occupant.
victor,
He can do it.
to the victor belongs the spoils.
I don't
here's
see
my
that as
point.
the spoils.
Let me make my comment then, and I've been told by 2 or 3 people not to say this, but the reason that White House was lit up in rainbow colors is because our president is an egotistical ass.
First of all,
Pure and simple.
First of all,
he doesn't care about anything but winning.
Amen.
And
First of
he's
all-
willing to damage the collective fiber of our country to make a victory lap. So, Franklin, he won. Why couldn't he have just come out and made a statement? People of conscience have different opinions. I hope we can have a dialogue where we can work these
can come
differences
together
out.
in the future.
Wouldn't that have been better than lighting the White House in rainbow colors?
first of all, I don't think that was a problem. Number one.
Would you have lit the White House in rainbow colors?
I probably wouldn't have been smart enough to think of it.
So you think that's a smart move?
I don't think it had any impact
It
whatsoever.
had a huge impact,
No,
Franklin.
well, I don't think it did.
Well, among the 60 million people that voted to define, now 60 million, not a small number, you know, but among us who disagree on this issue, it was a middle finger to all of us by the President of the United States. He is a pompous, arrogant ass.
He's a community organizer.
Well, he obviously doesn't care about civility. He doesn't care about peace. He
Now,
doesn't
notice
care
this
about
conversation
bringing people
started with,
together.
He wanted to hear what I had to say on an even keel, and he hasn't shut up for 5 minutes.
Well, because I actually thought that you could at least in this case say that wasn't
John,
helpful.
here is the difference.
It wasn't helpful, Frank.
You are obsessed with what you see as symbolism from this president. I don't see it as symbolism. Now, I will tell you.
You don't see
I'm not
lighting the White House in
I don't
rainbow
s-
colors
No,
as
let me
symbolism.
finish. I don't see that
Why
symbolism
did he
as
do
that
it?
important.
If it wasn't symbolism, why did he do it?
I said I don't see it as important.
Well, you
Well,
said
obviously he did
Well, fine.
because he wanted to thumb his nose at all the people
It was
that
a
disagreed with
symbolism,
him.
though.
So,
Franklin,
no, wait.
Franklin,
If
it wasn't
wait.
a symbolism.
Of course it was.
Okay.
If the president, when Brown versus Board of Education came out and participated in a celebration for it, would that have been thumbing the nose in the people who were opposed to desegregation? Well, I guess it would be, but so what? So what?
So what? That, folks, that's the progressive mantra. When we win, so what? We get to do whatever we want to. Now, you have to surrender all of your cultural values to our opinions, and if we ever lose, why, it's a terrible blow for humanity, but when we win, we get to give you the middle finger because your opinions don't really matter.
I will just say this. There is no point in American history when there have been advancements in civil rights that the opponents didn't get
I'm
left
glad you said
looking
American
bad.
history, because right now what you've done is you've undone 5,000 years.
No, you haven't. And
Yes,
that's
you
one-
have,
and that's one of
Franklin.
the most-
5,000 years.
You know, you talked about that last week, John. I've read the Bible too. What about Solomon and David? They didn't have one man and one wife. They had bukus of wives. That's in the Bible.
Is that
Well,
next?
Franklin,
Is that coming
Really?
up next?
Is that
Do you
in the
think-
Bible that it's one man
do you
and one
think
woman?
that-
No, it's not.
Do you think your buddies in the gay and lesbian movement are done? Is this victory the end? Because
No,
they've already called
I'm
for.
sure- I'm sure
they've
that- I'm sure
already
that they will
called
be-
for removing the tax exempt status of churches. That came this
Has
past
that
week.
happened?
They've
Did
called
they-
for it, Franklin.
So what? They've called
Oh,
for
I
it.
see. So don't look at the man behind the curtain, folks. Don't pay any attention to that.
Well, John, I am on the stage that has nothing to do with this issue. Okay.
Well, are you bothered by the?
I think the sanctuary ought to be tax free, and I think all the other property that they buy shouldn't be.
Are you okay with
personally,
the
but
coming decline in heterosexual marriage rates that are going to follow?
decline?
Yep.
That's been going on for 25 years. How does this affect it?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Franklin. I hate
I'm
to be.
sorry. Here's what I think, John.
No, let me answer your
listen.
question.
I'm not going to listen to the Donald Trumps of the world out there saying they're defending traditional marriage.
Franklin,
You talk about the height of hypocrisy.
How about the Miss America contest?
Let me answer your question, Franklin. Okay?
What about it?
He's defending the Miss America contest.
Let me answer
Miss
your question,
USA,
Franklin.
not
Miss
Hang
USA,
on.
okay.
The Netherlands, which is the longest country with gay marriage, they've had it the longest. After they passed it, they have seen a reduction in opposite sex marriage rates among young women by at least 5%.
What do you think they became lesbians?
Hang on.
Because somebody passed the law?
You've destroyed marriage. And
How
so
did you destroy marriage?
Because, Franklin, for millennia, marriage was the union between one man and one woman committed together to raise children. Now, wait a minute. Let me give it to you so you can't. Massachusetts, the year before, had a marriage rate of 5.6. In 2012, the last year we have data, the rate was down to 5.1 and 8.9%.
John, that has happened nationwide in America
No,
for
I'm
the
glad
last
you brought
30
that
years.
up. Let me correct it for you. Vermont, 5.1 decline
John.
since adopting same-sex marriage.
John.
Iowa, hang on, 9.2 since adoption. Connecticut, 7.3 since adoption. While that same time, the U.S. marriage rate held steady. So you had around a 8 to 10% decline in all the states that
John.
approved same-sex.
Are you
Franklin,
telling
I'm
me?
sorry.
Are you telling me
Yes,
over
I
the
am.
last 30 years, John, there hasn't been a dramatic increase in the number
There
of
has,
people
Franklin.
who are cohabitating without
There
marriage?
has, and what I'm telling you is this will make it worse. It has everywhere it's been adopted, and guess what?
How does this affect heterosexual
Because
people?
it undermines the value of marriage.
For goodness
It's a
sake.
destruction of the value of marriage. And guess what, Franklin? Guess what has come with the decrease in marriage rates? Child poverty has gone up. Child abuse has gone up. Drug addiction
John,
has gone up.
those are
all of those.
different
They're
issues.
all no, they're not,
it's
Franklin.
not.
They're all connected.
No, it's not.
Well, folks, this is how this works. The liberals do things, and then
The
they
liberals-
ignore the progressives
The
do
liberals-
things, and then they ignore things that come from it. They don't take responsibility for their consequences.
Yes, I would love to have an hour to read you editorials from newspapers all over America when Brown versus Board of Education
Well,
was
why don't
passed.
you read
And
me an
you know what they're all saying?
What?
Oh, this is going to destroy the sanctity of our society. It's going to
Franklin,
destroy
why
our
don't you read me
families.
an editorial against gay marriage. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. Editors are now not going to allow people to write in with their opinions against gay marriage. That's the editor. We just saw him this week say they would no longer allow opponents of gay marriage letters to be printed. Great society you're creating here with your progressives.
I could go back and
You
read
believe in
arguments
freedom,
from
don't you, Franklin?
1950,
Do we
and it
still
would
have a
be
First
John. I
Amendment?
could just forget John and just read those. It'd be the exact same arguments being made.
What happened to the good old TV shows like Lassie? Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Oh, let me do that public service.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Guns, guns, and more guns. That's right, folks. U.S. Money Shops has just received a large shipment of pre-owned Glock 22s, 23s, and the awesome Beretta 8040D Cougar. These guns are law enforcement trade-ins that start at just $379.99 while supplies last. At U.S. Money Shops, there's no shortage of guns, so if you're looking for a great deal on a newer pre-owned gun, then check us out first.
Buy or sell or buy today, the better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Visit usmoneyshops.com for the location nearest you.
Cleveland, are you ready for a free 4th of July celebration? Well, Bradley County's 4th District Commissioner Howard Thompson is. That's right, Saturday, July the 4th, it's the annual Howard Thompson's Fleeland and Wholesale Fireworks Show at 5577 Water Level Highway. That's Highway 64 East on the left out of Cleveland, you know. Free musical entertainment, free hot dogs, and a free giant fireworks show. So walk, ride your bike, pack the car, or the family RV, but get there and get there early. That's Saturday, July the 4th. Fireworks start at dark. Be listening on the Fro Daddy Show in July to win a giant fireworks package from Howard. That's Howard Thompson's Fleeland and Wholesale Fireworks Show, the annual free show for all the kiddies to enjoy. Hope to see you there.
Looking to purchase your next pre-owned vehicle? At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, it's $500 today and drive it away. That's right. You can leave our lot with a new pre-owned vehicle for as little as $500 down. We also offer the best customer confidence program around, so we can take great care of you and your vehicle. Visit Buy Here, Pay Here USA in Cleveland, Dayton, or our new Chattanooga location. Subject to credit approval, restrictions apply. See store for details.
If you need a little green, Lending Frog is making deals. He'll lend you cash on any kind of wheels. Borrow just a little, or you can borrow big. Lending Frog is a new financial gig. It's hip to hop into cash. LendingFrog.com is making a splash. Dig it, dig it. Dig it, dig it.
Every morning, the sun greets you, as reliable as a train heating and cooling system. Well, almost. Because no matter the temperature outside, it's always perfect inside. And when the sun calls it a day, a train system is there to say goodnight. Heating, cooling, and beyond.
Need to perfect the temperature in your home? Call the Train Comfort Specialist at Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. High-quality service and installation for more than 30 years.
It's hard to stop a train.
Hello, this is Josh Weekly with the Bald Headed Bistro. With spring in the air and summer around the corner, come see us for an enjoyable night out on the town. You can enjoy our covered patio or sit in our intimate dining room. Either way, you'll leave happy. Also, check us out on Facebook for great summer events like Supper Club, Chef Dinner, and weekend specials. Hope to see you soon here at the Bald Headed Bistro.
This is Teresa Gilbert from the Village Bake Shop in Cleveland, Tennessee. Do you have a birthday, wedding, or anniversary coming up and want that perfect cake? Need some donuts to sweeten up your co-workers? Want to surprise your sweet thing with a bag of cookies? Then come on over to the Village Bake Shop. Family operated since 1961, the Village Bake Shop is your first and last stop for fresh baked goods that will feed your sweet tooth. The Village Bake Shop located at the Village Green Town Center. The phone number here is 423-476-5179. See you soon.
The views of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Whoop FM.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
It doesn't matter to me. All right, we're back. Welcome back to Backfire. Franklin's got a public service announcement he wants to make.
We got the 4th of July coming up Saturday. As traditional public service announcement, I think Coldwell Banker is the group that puts out flags up and down Ocoee Street and other areas. There are folks are out there this morning doing that. It's a little bit hazardous sometimes. Please be mindful of that and be safe. We've had enough tragedy in the community the last week or so, and we don't want any more.
That's true.
And kudos to those folks for that public service.
And the Boy Scouts put them out on the graves.
Absolutely.
The veterans' graves.
Absolutely.
I just got a call from some Democrat that never gets up early in the morning. I don't know what in the world could be.
Steve, let me say something on the local issue. We've the last couple of weeks we've talked a little bit about this tax increase, and we mentioned it earlier in the show. But I just want to say that I hear rumblings that it may be brought up again at the July 6th meeting as a substitute motion. I just want to go on record as saying, if that happens, I find that to be a cowardly action, because there is an agenda that's put out on the Thursday before a meeting, which in this case, because of the 5 Tuesdays in June, that was last Thursday. That agenda is meant to let the public have transparency about what issues are coming up so that the public can participate in the democratic process. And something like a tax increase is not a minor off-the-cuff issue. If you're going to bring it up for a second vote, you know you're going to bring it up for a second vote. And to do that through a motion on the floor without putting it on the agenda, I think will be cowardly, and I think it's very undemocratic to do it that way. And I certainly hope that that won't happen on an issue this important.
John and I would probably approach this issue from a different angle, but we're not necessarily in disagreement. My concern is that I don't think we have thoroughly evaluated this project, the needs of the community from a long-term financial planning standpoint. I think it's not that I'm necessarily opposed to doing the tax increase, but the way they do it and the plans for the money and so forth have not been vetted, and just doing it project by project. Oh, let's raise the taxes for this project, let's do it for that, I don't think is a healthy long-term planning perspective.
How do you feel about not putting it on an agenda and slipping it in?
Well, I think that
do you think there ought to be a master plan put together of what the needs are?
I think there ought to be a long-term plan put together with a long-term comprehensive strategy for funding future needs, funding debt that we already have, looking for ways to avoid more debt, paying down debt, all those things. And as part of a master plan, I could easily get behind a big plan that had some tax increases in it. The idea of just doing it to fund this one project doesn't work for me.
Well,
very
unfortunately,
well.
that's
in all fairness, I'm going to come back and play devil's advocate. You're going to like this, Franklin.
Okay.
Now, what I keep hearing is that there hasn't been a tax increase in how many years?
Been a while. Been a long time.
But here's the problem with that.
understand.
There's
I'm
been
throwing
revenue
this out.
growth, but there's been revenue growth. I mean, that idea, think about that. If you carry that out to
revenue growth coming from what?
Economic growth.
Economic growth.
Oh, economic growth.
Sure.
Do we not have a brand new park down here that's been
But the
developed for
problem is
economic
we
growth?
spend, that Valker money. How many times have you heard people say, we got that Valker money to spend?
Yeah,
Oh, Lord, we spent that before it came in.
This is where I agree with John that we haven't had a long-term strategy. A long-term strategy is not just about building the new school we may need. It's also about what are the infrastructure needs for the community to allow it to continue to grow.
In other words, if we had more growth,
if we had
it would help
no,
fund
Franklin's
schools.
actually talking about planning. The problem is we don't plan anything.
Well, no,
we
wait.
react.
But you got to. That's right, though. You got to plan for future growth.
Okay.
And you got to plan the things that are going to help you do that. If you want to have new development in different parts of the city or the county, you're going to have to plan for what it's going to cost to build the infrastructure to do that. And when you do that, that may increase property values and bring more revenue.
No, and here's an interesting thing. Franklin and I would probably disagree on the tax issue and some things like that. But one of the reasons people like myself disagree on a tax increase is because we don't see any planning. We don't see any thought process going into it. It's by the seat of our pants, and the money gets wasted. If you're going to raise taxes on the public, you owe them the responsibility to know what you're doing and to do it reasonably and responsibly. And like Franklin said, to do it with a plan. On top of that, if we had a plan, people like Franklin and I could actually debate it and discuss it and say, here's where we think our priorities ought to lie.
What I think should happen is, whether it's a hybrid group of the county commission and maybe even private citizens brought in together to do a long-term study of the community's needs, projected growth. I mean, that's a factor.
Is this community not growing?
It is growing, and that's part of what.
And revenue goes up when they grow.
That's part of the
right.
issue. Well, some of it grows up, but not necessarily.
I mean, we were just voted 14th best location in the nation. Is that not?
Well,
something
the
to look
potential
forward
is
to?
certainly here for a lot of growth.
I mean, some people don't want growth.
Well, I can tell you there are some problems down the road. We are in line probably to end up a bedroom community of Chattanooga. Now, a lot of people are not entirely sure that bedroom communities are the best place to be. They're a great place to live, but as far as bringing industry in and things like that. But Franklin's right. We disagree on maybe some of the priorities we would set, but we both agree there's no leadership on the county level. Nobody is looking any further than the end of their nose, and usually it's regarding my next reelection.
I just would like to see, at a minimum, a 10-year plan for the county.
The county did a plan of salaries to see what county employees were really below pay level that they should be, what counties were at, and what county employees were above. That was a good thing.
Eric Watson did a wonderful job.
Eric did it on his own, which is a good thing.
Yes.
But my point is that county-wide plan was just put on the shelf and forgotten about because it was too hard to tell somebody who was already making too much no. So we just put it aside because we don't really want leadership. We just want re-election.
Do we need? Well, I don't want to get into all this. There's a lot of things.
Well, and I'll tell you something else.
John is probably like me. We'd make great one-term county commissioners.
Well, you know what? There's something to be said for someone who goes in and
I want to nominate both.
Well, there's something to be said for someone who goes in and does what they think is right and says, if you don't like it, vote me out. I wish we had more people that would run and say, this is exactly what I'm going to do. I know it's not maybe popular, but you can take my word for it. If you elect me, I'm going to do it. And if you don't like it, then don't vote for me. And after they're in, they say, this is what I think is right, and I'm going to do it. And if you don't like it, then vote me out. But we don't get a lot of that anymore. And I'll say one other thing that I probably shouldn't say. This is a county issue. City leaders have no business lobbying county commissioners for a tax increase so they can get their 1/3 to build their school. This is a county issue. And county commissioners shouldn't be taking into account what the city wants out of this deal.
Well, I mean, I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to play devil's advocate this morning. County commissioners, are they all from the county?
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that statement. I mean,
my point is not whether you couldn't take it into effect, but for city leaders to actually lobby for it.
Well, we would like the city and the county to be talking to each other more often, I think, because I think, contrary to what they believe, our common interests are best served by some joint planning.
Well, frankly, I agree they should be talking more.
I don't really have the problem with that so much as.
But my point is,
I'm just saying,
should be talking in public, don't you think?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Well, there's sunshine laws against the behind the scenes.
Well, there's not a sunshine law against those two bodies. That's right. It does not.
Unless, of course, there were two city officials involved.
Possibly. Yeah.
I just want to go on record here. You're both in favor of economic development.
Sure, absolutely.
Everybody's in favor of that.
All right. I think with that being said, let's move on.
Because that's no fun to talk about.
Agreement doesn't get us any listeners.
Agreement is so boring.
Let's talk about Walmart refusing to bake a cake with the Confederate flag on the top.
Now, wait a minute. They did an ISIS cake.
And the next day, the guy goes in and asks for an ISIS cake, and they did it.
I'm sorry. Did you see perhaps the funniest news blooper I've seen in 20 years? Did you see the CNN story at the Gay Pride Parade on Friday?
No. Where the gay pride people spit on the Catholic priest?
No, I didn't see that.
I'm sorry.
What I did see was they were reporting on the news that at this Gay Pride Parade that there was an ISIS flag in the middle of it, okay, which would be pretty shocking. And there was this black flag in the back that had these white symbols on it. And they ran this story 2 or 3 times that they were going to get to the bottom of this because this was just a stunning development. And then eventually they zoomed in on this flag and discovered that it was not an ISIS flag. It had, well, for lack of a better word, marital aids on it. and that was what they reported as an ISIS flag.
Marital aids.
Yeah.
What was going on with this bicycle deal? Everybody was bicycling naked in California yesterday. What is that deal?
Franklin,
they say they celebrate the celebration. At the end of it,
I didn't see it. I don't know.
They burn like 30,000 bicycle seats or something.
I'm just let me ask a question, Franklin. As a parent, are you thrilled that marital aids are being flapped around in broad daylight when young children are out?
Probably not. Okay. I don't know how many young people were actually at this particular.
Yeah, because who would have thought a young person would be out during the day?
Well,
broad daylight
at a gay parade.
Yeah.
Well, my point is, at some point, decadence becomes just for the sake of itself.
The reality there is that in many respects, those types of displays and those parades were reactions to the fact that they were being condemned in other ways.
And so your reaction is to flap a flag around of marital aids and to simulate
I'm
sex
just saying,
on
John,
floats?
that
Guess what? The Episcopal Church put a float in the New York City parade and had people on it in thongs dancing around half naked.
Who did?
The Episcopal Church.
You know, just
not my church.
Just keep in mind that the Episcopal Church, and I think the Methodist Church now, has issued statements that they don't have a problem with the Supreme Court.
Well, actually, I will address that because I'm a Methodist. We have a bunch of unelected
I'm a
leaders
Episcopalian.
in New York City in the Methodist Church that are completely out of touch with the vast majority of Methodist people, because the lay people, since 1972, every 4 years has debated this, and every 4 years we have voted that Christian teaching says that homosexual activity is incompatible with Christian teachings. Now, we say we value the individual. We love the individual. We reach out to the individual, but homosexual activity is inconsistent with Christian teachings. But
the point I have made in here, again, something I've said repeatedly, is that it's all fine and good that our generation is so divided on that issue. It's the younger generation that's going to make those decisions for the society, and I think they've already made that decision.
You're right, but they're going to live with the consequences,
Sure,
and they don't
absolutely.
understand.
But that's how every generation.
People
is.
your age reject the fact of the consequences.
All right, let's talk about the new overtime rule that could affect up to 5 million workers. It went from 23,000.
It's a proposed rule.
No, he says it's going in. He's going to do it.
It hasn't been done yet. That's my point.
Is he going to do it through Congress?
The last one wasn't done through Congress, and that predated him.
So it's going from 20. They're proposing 23,660 is the cap right now, going to 50,440. That's quite an increase.
Well, they say that it will cost $9.5 billion annually. And Franklin, he's not going to Congress. It's a new rule.
I didn't say he was going to Congress.
My point is he's
I
bypassing.
said that when it was set up previously, it wasn't passed.
Well,
by Congress.
why would you say that in context of this except to kind of confuse people?
No, it's not
Obama's going to
confusing.
do this through a rule change,
I know,
correct?
I know, but the suggestion that you're making is
that
this
he's
is somehow
violating-
he's doing it.
He is doing it.
When previous presidents have done it.
Through Congress.
No, it's a rule, John, not a law.
Here's what I see when I read something like this, and then I read on down through it. It says union supporters of Obama applaud the rule. The AFL-CIO president Richard Trumka called it critically important step towards raising wages for all Americans.
Here's the situation. What has happened is that over the last several years, there have been increasing numbers of people who were put on supposedly on salary by their employers. Now, in theory, that's supposed to mean that if they miss a day of work, that they get paid anyway.
They get paid more than $8, $10, $15 an hour.
But if they work overtime, they don't get any overtime for that. Well,
I don't get overtime, Franklin. I work a lot more than 40 hours.
Self-employed,
You're right.
John.
And I pay the taxes that pay for these. I will pay the higher prices that the companies will pass on to the consumer. So I'm paying for all of this.
I never thought about it as overtime. I thought about it as trying to get ahead.
An investment in your career, an
investment
in your
my
future.
career. You know, I just
and guess
worked
what's going to
hard.
happen?
I tried to produce.
Franklin, what happened when Obamacare said that anybody over 30 hours was going to have this increased coverage? What happened nationally?
Well, I know what happened in some places, not nationally.
Actually, nationally, huge companies all across the country cut everybody's hour. Locally, people said, I get 29 hours now.
We're talking about people who are considered to be full-time workers,
yes.
Number one, okay, and who are being paid amounts that are roughly equal to, $10 an hour approximately, and being told that they're on salary. And being required by their employers, in many cases, to work substantial overtime and not be paid anything.
Well, Franklin,
that's the issue that we're dealing. Hold on, let me just finish. That's the issue. Okay, now I think that the increase amount is pretty dramatic, higher than I would have expected. I think
it goes from 8% to 56%.
I think it's a probably an amount that's subject to debate. I think it probably ought to be raised. It's probably a fair debate whether that's the correct number or not.
All right, we're running out of time.
Do you think the companies will react? Here's the problem.
There's going to be a lot more
One of two
part-time
things
employees.
happens. The companies will react.
Part-time
More and more
employees.
employees will be moved out of salary into hourly positions, and they will limit their hours so they don't get overtime. Or the second thing is they will keep everybody exactly where they are. They'll increase the pay, and the $9.4 billion that it costs will be passed on to the consumer in higher prices.
This is really a fundamental thing.
It is fundamental.
You're really
have government control, or you believe in the marketplace.
You're really taking the position, okay? And I'm not going to criticize you. I just want to be explicit about it. You know, what you're really saying is that you think overtime laws are bad.
Overtime laws for hourly employees are fine.
Well,
we've had them for years.
But all they're doing is
salary.
saying, "Oh, well, we're just going to call you a salaried employee." When the reality is, what's happening is there's a whole lot more overtime being worked than there is.
Franklin, they crossed the bridge. They're now part of what you call a fixed. People that work by the hour, most of them haven't crossed the bridge.
Except that what's happening is
He's
there's
saying
a lot more overtime happening.
They're putting more people into supposed salary.
Yeah.
But you know what, Franklin? Where did the president or any of his people document that and give us some actual numbers? Nowhere. And how do you justify going from 8% covered
John,
to
what did I just say?
That's
the debate.
Here's the point. There isn't a debate. He's doing it through a rule change. There will be no debate. There will be no congressional debate at all. There'll be no public debate.
All right, I want to ask a hard question here. Let's change. We've got a long way to go here. I want to ask Franklin this question. We need to fix entitlement right now.
Sure.
Pick the first thing you'd go after.
Won't be the first thing. It's a comprehensive strategy for dealing with it, is my view.
All right, tell me what you do first.
Oh, well, let me tell you the parts that you probably would like first.
Okay.
Okay. The parts you probably like is that I would support over a 5 to 7 year period raising the retirement age up to 67 from 65. And the early retirement age from 62 to 64.
I appreciate that, but didn't the Democrat Party attack Paul Ryan when he made that same suggestion?
John,
let him finish.
He asked me a question.
I said I appreciate your opinion.
Okay, that's the first thing I would do. Okay, I don't have a problem with changing. This would be really controversial when you're talking about Social Security and so forth. I would put a lifetime cap on cost of living increases. There could be some, but over the course of a lifetime, a cap on how much you could get.
What happens if the age?
Hold on.
Well, I know, but I'm not arguing with you. But what happens when the life expectancy increases?
Well, that's the reason we talked about raising the retirement age, because of the.
Well, but my point is, your cap would eat into that as well. If people lived longer, they'd hit more and more would hit the cap.
They're already hitting the cap that I would think is appropriate.
How about letting them invest their money where they want to invest it?
Well, I think that's a disaster.
Yeah, because we don't trust the public.
That's right. In many cases,
I'm glad. So there are smarter people than those of us peons out here in the.
All right, let's go. Keep going.
I'm not through. I don't have a problem with needs testing on Medicare. If you make a lot of money, there's no reason you can't pay a higher premium for that benefit.
Even though you pay in just like everybody else.
You didn't pay enough in to get all that money back.
Nobody did.
Nobody. That's right. That's exactly the point.
Well, what you're doing is redistribution.
It's not redistribution. Hold on.
Saying that. No, be honest. It's redistribution. You're making someone
your health insurance.
Just because they make more, they have to pay more.
So is your health insurance. Your health insurance that you buy out there,
not based on income.
It's not the point.
It's not based on income, Franklin.
That's not the point.
That's ridiculous.
John. The point is, John, that for most people, when you're young and healthy, you pay more money in, and you're not getting as much out.
But you didn't pay more in because you didn't get insurance until the government forced you to.
You asked me what I would do.
I know.
That's what I would do.
All right, is that the 3 top things you'd do?
I would say that's the top 3.
All right. Yeah. John, I'm going to ask you the same question. To fix entitlement that is driving our country broke, give me 3 things.
Well, the first thing I would do is I would reinstitute Bill Clinton's welfare reforms that Barack Obama has gutted. I would put all of those work requirements back into place. The program was actually wildly successful.
Bill
Clinton did it with a Democrat Congress.
Okay.
I would reinstitute those. I would look at food stamps. I would probably take food stamps and I would turn it into a WIC type program. The WIC program is probably one of the most successful entitlement programs we've got. And by the way, the WIC program was created by Dan Quayle. You know, the guy they said was an idiot. It's actually considered. Well, the point is, why do I want to fund someone's bad nutrition? You know, the WIC program is milk and it's formula and eggs. It's things. So I would take the food stamp program and I would make it into a program where you could buy certain types of nutritious food. Because I shouldn't have to buy a T-bone steak for you one time a month while your kids go hungry the rest of the month.
Or beer or whatever.
Or beer or whatever.
Right, that's two.
And then I would do something about the disability. You know, it kills me. For example, these commercials you see on TV about how blind people aren't able to sleep. Okay, think about that for a minute. Blind people in this country function every day. They hold down jobs. They may earn a living. They go through life without the fundamental ability to see something that you and I would consider invaluable.
They have
and
other
yet,
senses.
We have all kinds of 20 to 30-year-olds who have a bad back, and they're on Social Security disability for the rest of their life because their back hurts.
Our disability's gone crazy. I will agree to that. I think those are good points. Now then, what do we got to do to come together as one nation and make these things happen? We've got to do
term limits. You put term limits in, and you
I,
might get some of this.
You know, we can talk about all the things that John said there.
And what you said.
Okay.
I'll go along with.
Here would be the
here's what Franklin said.
Here would be the small criticism that I would level to that if you really want to talk about entitlement reform. The areas that he just talked about would represent about 1/4% of our entitlement spending. So it's not really a significant reform.
That's not correct.
I
And Franklin, I didn't disagree. The only reason I said those three is because you'd already said the three you said.
All right. Well, but you didn't think
I'm for all of them.
those.
I'm for all of them.
I thought his question was, what were your top three?
Well,
that's what I thought he was asking.
You want me to repeat the same thing you just said?
If those are your top three ones, yeah, sure.
Well, my point is, three's not enough. We need a top 10 or 12 or 15 or 40 or 60.
I'm just trying to start somewhere.
I don't think it's fundamentally that hard to get to a solution.
Do you think we ought to have a beer summit?
It's good enough for me.
You know, that was Barack's first strategy, to have a beer summit. To
you talked about that. One thing we didn't talk about is that was a huge bipartisan result last week on the trade agreement.
Bipartisan. The Republicans gave that to him.
Some Democrats voted for it too, John, and a Democratic president voted for it. That's bipartisan, isn't it?
It is. My point is, it's bipartisan because Republicans were bipartisan.
My point, it wasn't bipartisan for them. It was their idea.
All right, real quick, what do you think?
The president embraced something that was really a Republican
He embraced
proposal.
something that every chief executive has always embraced.
My point is, don't say they're bipartisan for voting for something they were already for.
All right, now then.
Show me an example where they crossed the aisle. That'd be bipartisan.
No, actually, they did a good thing.
You know, the president got criticized by the people on the left. So that's the bipartisan
act.
act.
The Republicans, because he was the president and because how we feel about him, we didn't let that stand in the way of doing what we thought is right. Your party, the Democrats, don't seem to have that too often.
All right. The Iran nuke talks have been stalled again. Fourth time we've extended it. So you think everything's still on key here? Everything's going along okay?
I don't know if it's going okay or not. What I do know is that the thing to do if we don't have an agreement that works for us is to keep talking. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the MOP either, which is the massive ordnance penetrator bomb that we've developed specifically to take out their nuclear abilities.
Developed under the Obama administration.
Actually, it did. I'll give him that. The military developed that since 2012. But here's your problem. 2 European intelligence reports have now confirmed that Iran has been cheating during the negotiations.
Actually, yesterday, the reports that came
Please
out.
tell me you're not going to say Iran's not getting the upper hand in this.
Even
the Europeans.
Yesterday, the Europeans and all of the international agencies issued a statement that Iran had met the targets required under the interim deal to lower the amount of enriched uranium they had in their country. That's just a fact.
Well, then that's politics, because just a week ago, European studies actually said they had increased their stockpiles during that time.
You know, what they said was that they did not have the technological ability to de-enrich it as fast as
they could have shipped it out of the country, and they refused.
I understand, John.
Their parliament chanted death to America last week, Franklin.
They made the target yesterday.
Their entire parliament chanted death to America last week and said that they would not allow any inspections of their military sites.
John.
And the Grand Ayatollah has said they won't allow.
And the president said yesterday, if we can't get those inspections that we want, there will be no deal.
Do you think he's been a success on the world stage?
In which area?
In any area. Name somewhere he's been a success.
Okay, John.
You know, former president said that he's been a failure, that he couldn't name really anywhere where he's had success.
All right, we're coming up to the end of this show. I've got to ask you.
By the way, that former president, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter says that he's had minimal success.
And John, and
foreign
this is what
relations.
amuses me because John so often agrees with Jimmy Carter.
I don't. My point is, I'm shocked that he said
agree.
it.
I saw that too, John. I've got to say, I was shocked when he
This
said
is
it
Jimmy
too.
Carter. I would
thought he might
say
just
that
be
the
getting
United
senile.
States' influence and prestige and respect in the world is probably lower than it was 6 or 7 years ago. Jimmy Carter thinks he's a. When Jimmy Carter thinks that you've been a failure,
George
That's about as low as it goes, isn't it, John?
George W. Bush
Hey, let me ask you this.
offered a contrary opinion.
What do you think about NBC, what they did because of Donald Trump?
I'd say they probably helped his campaign.
So free advertisement? That's what
Yeah, big time.
So now there's a $500 million lawsuit been filed.
Well, here's the real question:
You're getting all
why
the
haven't
news.
they fired? I'm blanking out. Al Sharpton. He said equally. He called New York Hymietown.
Al Sharpton is not presently running for president.
No.
That's
That's
their
not.
answer.
No. They didn't use that excuse. They said they fired him because his comments about Mexico were insulting, and they weren't going to tolerate that kind of bad comments. Now, I agree with you. I think they probably were looking for an excuse to get out.
And I think it from a
but why not just say
presidential
that?
standpoint, it helped Donald Trump.
But my point is, based on their reasoning that they stated they fired him for, why haven't they fired Al Sharpton?
Al Sharpton. I loved it when Al Sharpton's leading the mayor of Baltimore.
By the way, the case in Baltimore is collapsing around that prosecutor's feet.
I know it, but they're not going to let anything happen to that poor girl. Al Sharpton's going to make sure of that. Folks, I'd like to keep going today, but I guess we're out of time.